Welcome back to another episode of Life's Ambition Podcast. Today we are joined by someone who has conquered many different professions. He's going to share his input, though, on franchise consulting. Without further ado, Greg Mohr. Greg, how are we doing today?
Another beautiful day in the neighborhood, Drew.
Cannot complain with that. You know, we're finally out of the second or third winter, I'd say, we have in Raleigh. So, or at least I hope so. Today's the real first good day. So hoping it's all for the best. And I'm super excited to be able to talk with you here today. I think your story is really cool and exciting. You know, I've never talked to someone on the investor side of the world, especially when it comes to restaurants in different areas. And I kind of love to hear about how you got into it, because I do feel like it's kind of a hard career field to get into.
Well, into franchise consulting, I got into franchises. That was way back when I was 16. Back then, we usually all got jobs at fast food places. Mine just happened to be Taco Bell. And as it ended up, I started working for a master franchisor for Taco Bell. She had about 50 Taco Bells throughout the Sacramento, California area. And that was the first time I've even heard the word franchising before. So that was my first foray into that. I went on to manage other restaurants, became a restaurant manager for about 15 years and got bored with that. Went on to become a microelectronic circuit engineer over at Motorola Semiconductor. And then after 30 years in the corporate world, I left that one. I'd owned a couple other businesses while I was doing that with another engineering friend of mine. I owned a couple of real estate properties. We both went in on a dry cleaners, storage units. So I sold off all my half of everything to him. He left the corporate world. I left the corporate world. And I said, I got to get back into that franchising thing. That was a whole heck of a lot of fun. So with the help of a franchise consultant, I never knew they existed, but I went quick happy on the internet, had about 20 different franchise development people calling me. Finally found a franchise consultant. He helped me get into a great franchise. I did that for a while, but started thinking about what that franchise consultant did. You know, I really like what you do. You get to work from home, good use of your time, so you're not out driving around everywhere. So I said, get me involved in your organization. I want to do that. So that was about 12 years ago, and I haven't looked back since.
That's awesome. And you mentioned, and my apologies, I probably should have said when I said the investor side, is you're getting investors through the franchising. So that's my bad. I'd love to hear about, so you mentioned this little word of master franchisor when you were at Taco Bell. Is there different levels then to franchising itself? And maybe someone that just has one company is just a franchisor, and then a master franchisor starts when you have 5 different places. Is there tiers to this?
There is, Drew. There's basically, I would say, a great deal of folks will start out with one franchise, one territory. So you build that one up, you get that one going. That's what most of my folks do. Some of the ones that have a little bit more money to invest and they want more of an empire, they might build up 3 territories at the same time. It's going to look a little different whether you're in the service industry versus whether you're in a brick and mortar type business. But basically what you're doing is you're building out that entire area. That area is yours. It could be 3 territories, 5 territories. More of like an area developer, they call that. And then the next step you go into, there are a few franchises, not a whole lot, but there are a few franchises where you become what they call a master franchisor. And what you do then is you pick up a big territory, then 3, 5, 10 territories. You'll build out one location yourself. That will be your training location. And basically what you are is you're the right-hand person of that franchise. So when you're a training location, you'll train all the potential franchisees or the franchisees that are coming in, and they'll buy the territories directly from you rather than from the franchisor. So say you have 5 territories. One of them you build out. That's your pilot unit. That's your training unit. The other 4, you'll sell to somebody else. You'll train you'll train each one of those people in your location, but then you'll share in the franchise fee and the royalties for the other location. So it's a great annuity, great way to build it up. And it gives the franchisor one less thing to do for that area because then they don't have to train the people. You are. So you train them. You've got a nice annuity coming in. A great way to build wealth and to build an empire.
So is that where, with that example, so you have your pilot location. So let's say it's like Dunkin' Donuts or we can just go back to Taco Bell. So you have your pilot location where you own 100% of that. And then the other places you would give out equity in those senses? So like you might only have like 70% of one place or like 60% of another based on people investing into it. Is that kind of what you're getting at?
You're close, Drew. So
Oh,
what happens is that when somebody else buys another territory, they've got that entire territory. So a couple
oh,
things.
okay.
When you get into a franchise, you've got a franchise fee, one-time franchise fee on that. And then you've got the second one is the royalties. Royalties are generally between 5 and 10% straight off
Hmm.
the top. That keeps that franchise in business, and they supply any kind of information you need, always helping you grow your business. As a master franchisor, then when you pick up those 5 territories that you started with, you pick them up at a discounted rate. So you might get
Oh,
those territories for half of what they sell. So if they sell, generally speaking, franchise fees are right around $50,000, give or take. Whichever franchise you get into doesn't matter. So
gotcha.
the franchisor may sell those to you for 25,000. So you're going to turn around and you're going to sell those for 50,000. So you make 25,000 off of each one.
Oh,
Now the
dang.
franchisor is going to get that royalty. So let's say it's 10% to make it a nice even number. So what the franchisor will do, since you're training people and you're maintaining those units out there, they're going to give you half of that. So you'll get 5%. The franchisor will get 5%. That makes
Hmm.
sense?
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. It seems like such a convoluted, complicated world that you're a part of here. And I was wondering, how did you take the time to like really dive deep and learn it because there is so much to it. I know you had those experiences with Taco Bell and then you had someone take you under your wing later on, but I feel like that world is ever changing. So how did you kind of wrap your head around all of it?
So the first thing was when I started looking into franchising, I started reading different books on franchising. That was a good thing because then I got into my Schooley Mitchell telecommunications consulting franchise. Big word there. So I learned about franchising from the other franchisees that I was working
Yeah.
with over at Schooley Mitchell. So I learned a lot about franchising there, and from Dennis Schooley, who runs Schooley Mitchell, great guy. He taught me lots of good things about franchising. So I learned from him. And then when I stepped away from that and got into the world of consulting, now I had to learn about more about franchising. So the organization that I belonged to at the time, the consultant organization, they had a lot of educational material. So I went through all the educational material, sat down with as many different franchisors as I could to learn about their businesses and what they do, what they offer,
Hmm.
who they're looking for as potential franchisees. So it took a little while to build that business up because you really had to get to know all the different franchises because when people come to you, there's no telling what they might want to get into. They might want to get into the
Yeah.
service industry. They might want to get into a brick and mortar. So you've got to know a lot about different things. So education, lots and lots of education, reading lots of books and going to lots of conferences.
And does every place have, or like every franchise have its own nuances to it? So like a laundromat that someone wants to open up is completely different than, let's say, a restaurant in terms of
Yes,
like the
yeah.
regulations, all that stuff you have to follow.
For yes and no, Drew. For the regulations that you have to follow, yes, everybody's going to be a little bit different. So if you get
Gotcha.
into something like a senior care franchise, then you've got a few different regulations and and licenses to get on that one. If you go into an HVAC or plumbing or electrical, you're looking at a master plumber or master electrician that you've got to get into. So a little bit different
Hmm.
nuances. Whereas with dry cleaners, as you mentioned there's not a whole lot there to do. You just build it out and you just get a business license for that area. And you don't have to have any special skills uh, or regulations other than whatever building permits that you need. So
Really?
from that standpoint, everything's a little bit different. From the franchise itself standpoint, everything's pretty much the same. They've got a playbook for you to follow, step-by-step instructions for you to go through. So you just walk into that business, franchisor teaches you everything you need to know. They're with you every step of the way, and that's across the board for franchises in general. It's just playbook, step by step, follow the process and procedures, you're good to go.
And for people kind of like getting into the field today, is it pretty easy for them to reach out to these resources of franchisers of different areas to just kind of experience more of that world of things? Or is it kind of like a who you know type field?
You can reach out to franchises anywhere. It's the challenge would be knowing which one of those businesses out there is a franchise. And there's lots of
Yeah.
franchises and lots of different industries out there. So if you go into a shop, you just ask the people that are in there, whether it be, your lawn care, your HVAC, your plumbing, your donut shop, Pilates studio, healthcare studio, just go in there and ask them, is this privately owned or is this franchise owned? A lot of the franchise, my candidates, the people that get into franchises, the franchisees, they they don't treat it like a job. They treat it like a business on that, like an asset. So you won't necessarily find them there at that location because since they treat it like an asset, which all entrepreneurs should, they have managers running them for the most part. So
Yeah.
you may be able to get a hold of the franchisee that runs that, and you may not. It may be a little bit of a challenge. So it just depends on which business you go into. But I would just ask if you're interested in one and you're going around, just ask the business, are you a franchise? Can I talk to the owner about it? And the owners are usually always very happy to talk with people about their business.
Oh, and it's because I'm sure it's because it's like, oh, I built this from the ground up. Like, I'd love to kind of share the story about how it all started. And you mentioned something kind of interesting about private versus franchise owned. And I'd love to kind of understand like what makes someone make that decision of whether they want to stay the private route versus the franchise route. Because I'm
Depending
sure
on
it has its both perks in different areas.
that, it does, Drew, and it just depends on how you want to grow and how fast you want to grow. So if you are a privately owned business, keep in mind every single one of these franchises all start out as their own privately owned business. And so when you grow that business, if you're going to grow another location, you're going to put all of your money into that location and all your time and effort because you're building that one up. You get all the profits, minus all the expenses and all that kind of stuff. It's all yours. So you build out one, you build out two, it's all yours. You're putting your money directly into it. So the growth pattern is going to be more linear type growth pattern, going to be a little bit slower because you have to build up your
Interesting.
funds
Yeah.
until you get into it. With a franchise system, it's going to be a little bit different. You've got somebody else now that's putting their money into that location. So they're doing the entire investment on that. You as a franchisor, you'll receive your royalties. A franchise fee, one-time fee, it just covers pretty much just getting people trained and getting people going. So you don't make a ton of money off that one. It's the royalties that the franchisors are really looking for there off the top. So you only get 5 to 10% per location, but you're not putting any of your money into it. And your role as the owner of the business is going to change a little bit as you get into franchising versus if you are doing it privately. Now, what you're doing as a franchisor, you are a mentor. So you're changing from operations role to operating and maintaining those different locations. Now you're mentoring other people. You're showing people what you did to grow that business and teaching them. So if it's for people, if you don't mind changing your role, and if you like being a mentor and you want to show other people what you did, it's a good way to grow an exponential growth, huge growth. You can grow as fast or slow as you want as a franchisor, many different ways to grow.
Interesting. I guess why wouldn't people want to take more of the franchise route? Because then they're not putting all their own money into it with all that risk involved.
It is really a big personal decision on that, Drew, whether to go that, because you do have to maintain the standards of each one on there. Whereas when you control it directly, it's a little bit easier for you to maintain control of the standards on that. You saw, for those people who watched that show about McDonald's on that, where he started growing his business. When he first started, he brought in the wrong franchisees to begin with, the ones that weren't quite right. He brought in investors that just kind of ran things their own way. So he had to oversee that, and he saw that they weren't operating the way he wanted them to run. So that's one of the things you have to do then as a franchisor, is to not only figure out and maintain those and making sure they're running according to your standards, but then you have to also pick out the right people for it. And what he did was he picked out different people than he first started with. So the first ones he started with were just investors. They didn't work out quite so well. He found that couples, husband and wife teams, were the ones that made the best franchisees that ran it full time. They operated more to his standards than the other ones he did on there.
I wonder why that is, to have like a couple with it.
It's interesting that different franchises have different standards for who they want, who makes a great franchisee in their system. So each franchise, and we were talking about nuances earlier, and that's one of the nuances with the franchises, that each one's a little bit different. So they have kind of a different idea of who makes a great franchisee in their system. So our franchisors tell us these are the types of people that do good in our systems, like the Schooley Mitchell one that I was into. Who would make a good franchisee for those? Good salespeople. That's who. People that can go out. They like talking. They like communicating. They like just the challenge of going in there and getting the sale and showing people what they can do to help them out. So not everybody would make a good franchisee for that system. They have to be good salespeople. They have to love to network. They have to love to just shake hands and go into doors, talk to people. And not everybody's like that. Some people are a little more standoffish. So maybe they want to hire a manager to do it. They're good at managing operations, but they're not good at sales. So every franchise got a little bit different, and that's where I come in. I do I'm kind of like Match.com and Realtor.com all rolled into one.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like.
Yeah.
It's such a cool world that you're part of, because it is, I feel like the owner has to really know who they are as a person to understand the route they have to take. And because it sounds like if you go the franchise route, you're managing what those people are doing in terms of like your business. But if you go in the private route, there's a lot of risk involved with yourself being the only person. You have to make sure everything's running smoothly. So it's totally convoluted. And I guess, what is like your favorite part of it all? Is it playing the Match.com?
Yeah, Match. That's the challenging part. I like that challenge. That's a good challenging part, Drew. But watching people succeed and getting to where they want to be in life, because most of the folks, when they come to me, they're looking down the road and they're not quite seeing that the end of the road is where they really want it to be. So putting them into a business where they can start seeing that, yes, the end of the road's a lot sooner, for one, so they don't have to work full time for the rest of their lives, but they get to where they want to be a whole lot quicker than if they were to just do their standard corporate route.
Oh, for sure. And have there been any ideas that have come to you and you're just like, interesting, I'd love to hear how this works, and like, why are people like invested into this?
We have some interesting
and I'm sure you can't necessarily probably talk about it, but like some of these ideas, but I'm curious to see if that's ever happened.
As far as new franchises, different types of franchises go?
Yes.
Well, yeah. So we got some new, different ones that pop up. Duty calls, for instance, picking up after pest waste management. Like, all right, you guys are really making money at that. So I'm thinking, you're going to go into people's homes and say, yeah, I'm going to pick up after your dog. They're like, well, that's a small part of it. Think more bigger. Think of a golf course. When you get geese poop all over the place, huge thing to clean up. Parks, things like that.
Never would have thought about that.
No, right off the top of my head, that's not what I was thinking either. And they make a lot of money. It's great business on there. In addition to that, some folks just like to have somebody come in and clean up their yard. So that's a new one. Crime scene cleanup. You wouldn't know that was a franchise, but yes, we have a franchise for crime scene cleanup, which sounds kind of gross to me. But there are people that are into that, and unfortunately, it's a much needed business to get into. So there's very unusual
people that specialize in crime scene cleanup.
Yep, franchises that do just that, to clean up.
Holy cow!
Yeah, huge. Unfortunately, it is a big business, and people are needed for that. And that's one that not a whole lot of competition, but somebody has to do it, and somebody found a way to franchise it and say, yeah, we can do it, and have a standardized thing. So interesting what different ones come up.
That, it's tough to hear in that sense that there are franchises like that, but it's just crazy how there are things in that way. And I'd love to kind of hear about, how do you create these client investor relationships when people are franchising? Is like, how do you get in touch with these people of, hey, we'd love to give you X amount, but we're expecting this amount in royalties? And then how do you bridge the gap between the two?
So as far as people generally come to me. They usually found me somewhere. My book that I wrote, they've read that. They schedule time on my calendar. They see me out on social media. Somewhere I get a lot of referrals, and a wonderful podcast like yours. People see me on there, and they come and reach out to me and they want to know more. And yeah, they've got a certain amount that they're looking to invest, not only money wise, but time wise as well. And some of them are looking for a certain return on that. And then what I do is then I help them, I look at where have they been. So what do you bring to the table? As we were talking about before, different franchises require different things. So I want to know what your background is. What skill sets do you have? What skill sets do you like using on a daily basis? Not just the ones that you have, but if you're going to do the franchise, you're going to want a skill set that you use that's related to that franchise that you like to use on a daily basis, so it doesn't feel like you're working. So, and then where are you at now, time, money wise, and then what's your goal? What are you trying to get to? When do you want to get there? So those people come to me from all over the place. And for the franchisors, I belong to a franchise consulting organization. So the organization as a whole goes out and looks at different franchises and vets them out to make certain that we're getting some of the best franchises that are out there. So we look at a lot of things as far as the franchise itself goes, any kind of information that's out there, background information on the people that are running the franchise, making sure that looking at bankruptcies, looking at litigation, looking at franchise turnover rate, so that we can bring back some of the best franchises that are continuing to grow and that don't have anything bad out there in the news on them.
So it's almost, I thought it would have gone a completely different direction of the franchise comes to you guys and then they get or look for the investor. It sounds like it's the other way around where investors come to you looking for franchise to go into. Do
Absolutely.
a lot of
Absolutely.
why is that the case, or how do you think it would work if it was the other way around, or does it happen the other way around?
So from a franchisor's point of view, you've got a business. So you folks out there, you've got a business, you want to turn it into a franchise. Okay. It costs about $50,000 to turn it into a franchise. And you've got to go and get a franchise disclosure document, get all that filled out. We've got people that'll do that for you if you're interested in that. So now you become a franchise. Now, how do you grow as a franchise? Organic growth. You've got a web page out there. You've got people that are already stopping by your businesses. So what we call organic growth is people have seen you. Either they've utilized your services or they found you out there on the internet somewhere, and they come to you saying, I want to get more information on your franchise, and let's see if it's a good fit. And keep in mind, it's an interview both ways. Both sides will be interviewing each other to make certain they're both a good fit. So that's organic growth. And that now the franchisor can take it another step further and can do their advertising and marketing themselves as well, where they go out and try and find people. Many different ways to do that. There's other organizations that help the franchises themselves grow, cost money on that, but they'll help them grow. No, those organizations will take a certain amount, but they'll help them grow. And then you can go to consultant organizations like the one I'm into. You, again, spend money to be involved in that organization. But now what you have is you have a few hundred franchise consultants like myself that are going to go out there. We are going to do the advertising and marketing for you. And we're going to do a questionnaire and we're going to vet those candidates out, because you're going to tell us who it is that makes a great franchisee for your system. So then we can go out, we can filter those out so that when we bring them to you, you already know that they meet the basic requirements of getting into their franchise. So it's a matter of really how much you want to spend and how fast you want to grow, as far as whether or not you want to utilize the different organizations that will help you grow. The more organizations that you get into, the faster you grow, but you'll be spending more money to do that. So,
Gotcha. Gotcha. And so do these franchises say, hey, we're looking at investors that can give us whatever for this percent, or is it more the investors that are saying, hey, we'll give this amount, but we'd like this in return if we're going to help these people out?
So everything is set in stone from the franchisor's point of view, pretty much. This is the amount to get involved in our franchise. This is the investment. The total investment is going to vary depending on what area you're in. So if you're in New York, it's going to cost you a little bit more than if you're out here in the boondocks where I live. So your investment's going to vary a little bit depending on what kind of equipment, what kind of office that you're going to need on that. So the franchisor already has the total investment, part of the franchise disclosure documents under item number 7, total investment. So you'll know as a potential franchisee, one of my candidates will know as they're looking through there what the investment level is. So the franchise is going to have some basic requirements. One is a net worth requirement on there. The net worth requirement so that you have the money to invest in that franchise without going broke and making certain
Yeah,
that you get
that
things
makes
built.
sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they know how much it costs and they know, what kind of loan you're going to need. And we've got loan people that'll fund a franchise all the time. But franchise has got that net worth requirement. That's set in stone, and not set in stone, but that's outlined in the franchise disclosure documents. So when my people come in, they're saying, I'm looking to invest this kind of money. This is my net worth. And then what I can do of the few hundred different franchises I work with, I can narrow that field down. Okay. He's got a, $250,000 net worth. So anything that requires more than that, any of the huge brick and mortar places like restaurants, that sort of thing, they're out of the picture. We can't use those because you don't have the net worth. So now we've narrowed it down. That. Now, do you want to work full time or semi absentee? The franchisor is going to say whether they want full time or semi absentee. So if they want semi absentee manager run, then I can narrow it down further. And now we can narrow it down through industries. But all of that's going to be outlined in there. So it's not a question of going back and forth with the franchise saying this is how much I want to invest. The franchise is saying this is how much it does cost to invest in our franchise.
Yeah.
You're not giving that total investment to that franchisor. You're giving that franchisor the $50,000 to get you to where you want to be 2 to 3 years quicker than if you're going to do it yourself. That total investment minus that $50,000 is what you would pay anyway if you were to build that business up yourself.
How often do you find through the system that you guys have where you have your general checklist and then it goes back to the franchise? How often are you finding those people are hired or like, yes, I'd love to work with you versus no, even after that kind of like vetting system?
1 out of 4 will invest in a franchise.
Really? It's 1 out of 4.
Yep.
That's a good percentage, I feel like.
Well, I've been doing it for a while. It's not always that good in our industry, but for me, myself, if I introduce 4 people to a franchise, 1 person will invest. So I make certain people know what they're getting themselves into before they get into it. I've even got franchise attorneys that'll go through the documents and make sure you know what you're getting yourself into and you're okay with it.
Yeah.
A lot of people can't get over the fear of doing something different. That's a big challenge. And sometimes it's just not right for them. The timing is just not right for them, not the franchise. The timing is just not right. Or they're looking at that and saying, they'll tell me that they have, if they want to run it, manager runs semi-absentee, they tell me they have 10 to 15 hours a week. But when they start looking at the franchise and realizing what they have to do, they're like, the time may not be right. So I'll lose 3 out of 4, but a lot of those 3 out of 4 will actually come back to me 2 or 3 years later and say, okay, now I've got everything in order. Now I've got more time. Now I've got more money to invest. Now we're good. But yeah, basically one in 4 that I introduce will get into a franchise.
Well, congrats on the really good percentage of turnover there. That's awesome. Well, and you said that that's not the case for the industry itself. What would you say is the percentage for other people? Do you think it's like a 1 out of 8?
1 out of 10, if you've been in it a few years, when you first get started, you're going through about 100 people, about 1 in 100.
100 people? Holy cow. And what do you get out of the investor saying yes to a franchise?
I get to eat. I get paid.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
So I'm free to my candidates. My candidates come to me. They don't pay me anything. The franchisors pay me a referral fee. Gotcha. And they just pay me a certain percentage of the franchise fee itself on that.
Oh, so you kind of you are kind of like a salesman in a sense. Like if someone's just a standard marketer and they're looking to sell like a laser product or even whatever, you make commission, I guess, quote unquote, off of that.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's my commission is when I bring them in. And that's one of the reasons why franchisors will go with us because and that's what they pay for when they're getting involved with us. Rather than going out and do it themselves and paying their own marketing fees, they find that they get better candidates and it's probably a little bit cheaper to run with us because we help them through the process and getting them vetted out. So they don't mind paying us a referral fee for doing that. Works out good both ways.
For sure. And you said you might go through 100 people in your first year just to get 1, and then it's like 1 out of 10, and now you're at 1 out of 4. What are the separating factors for someone who's just starting out that gets them from that 1 to 100, 1 to 10, and then 1 out of 4?
Those skills at Match.com are the really, really good ones on that, is really being able to know your franchises that you work with, know the ins and outs of what they're looking for, what their culture's like, and then getting to know your people really well as possible in the time we have together. It usually takes 2 or 3 months to go through the entire process, but I get to know my people as well as I can. I think as you go through the years, you get better at kind of reading people and figuring out what it is that they're really trying to accomplish and helping them getting over their fears, and then working closely with the franchisor and your candidate and making it a team effort to make certain that it is a good fit for everybody concerned. So picking out the right franchise for the people that I'm working with so that they can look at. So I've got them looking at the ones that are the closest match that I can get to them right away, so that it doesn't take too long. Because after a while, if you're new at it and you have to go through too many franchises with people will get burnt out of trying to, go through, okay, that one didn't work, so let's get you 5 more. Now let's get you 5 more. After a while, they're just like, it's not working. So you've got to really get to the right franchises right away and say, this is what your list, this is what you told me you wanted. Franchise has got everything that you asked for right here, this one. Now it's just a matter of, do you get along with the franchisor? Does the franchisor get along with you? And if that's a good cultural fit, got it made.
At the beginning, were you ever like, man, maybe this is just not for me, when you're just filtering through all these people and franchises?
Yeah, it's tough because you don't get paid unless you put somebody into a franchise. So you're doing a lot of work for nothing to begin with. So yeah, at first it would get to be a little frustrating. As a former engineer, I would show people data and then they make a decision on the spot. So I had to learn a little bit more patience and resilience to get through it and realize that this is a big decision for people, just like it was for me when I got into it. So you need to make certain that you educate them. You need to make certain that you give them the information that they're looking for and really be able to dive in, because people will tell you, I don't like it for this reason. That's not always the reason. You have to be able to dig a little bit deeper and say, what else? What else you got? Why is that? And really get to know them and find out what their big concerns are, and then make certain you get the information they need to overcome those concerns, or realize that it's a valid concern and they're just not ready for franchising.
I gotcha. And are the investors that you're looking at, what kind of, you mentioned like before that restaurants might need people of higher net worth than maybe a different franchise.
Mm-hmm.
Why is that the case? And like, what kind of net worth individuals are you guys looking at for maybe different industries? Let's say like construction or even the pest control. If you're okay, or if you're able to talk about that.
Absolutely. Two different types of businesses in the U.S. Brick and mortar. You build it, they will come. You're looking at a big build out, whatever it is. So generally speaking, there are a few of the franchises where you build a standalone building, but not too many. Most of them are going to strip mall somewhere. So we're looking at people with about a $500,000 net worth or more, because it does take a little bit to get that build out done. And you have to have A+ real estate as well. So people drive by, they see you. On the other end of the spectrum, we have the service industry. The service industry is where your clients don't know you exist until they need you. So you get a great franchise to drive people to you when the need arises. For those, about a $200,000 net worth is all that's needed. Because then what you're looking at there is either working from home or small office. Doesn't require as much of an investment, because you're going to go out, quite often you'll go out and talk with your clients rather than your clients coming to see you. So whether that be pest control, groundskeeping, senior care, tutoring, anything that has to do with house, HVAC, plumbing, electrical services. People don't just drive by and see the plumbing company. Oh, I got to go stop by the plumbing company and say hi. You don't do that. So you go out and see them. They have a problem. They say, I got a problem. Franchisor, they look you up. Franchisor's got great advertising marketing. They've got a nice call center. So when people call up, say, hey, I got a plumbing problem. Can you guys do this? So franchisor's got that call center. Call center calls you, or puts it on your schedule to go out and visit with them. And you go out and visit with your clients. You're their super person. You are going to solve all their problems for them on that. So that's much lower investment on those, because you don't need, the only thing that you're going to need extra besides maybe an office is an equipment that you may need for some of those different franchises.
Yeah. Have you ever worked with farmers at all? Like I don't know if they franchise at all or need those kind of
Insurance?
investments.
Insurance people?
Uh,
Farmers?
sorry, farmers.
Okay. Farmers
Like
like
because I
myself will
think
grow
about the
crops.
equipment that they have,
Yeah.
and their equipment's like hundreds of thousands of dollars.
We don't have anything that I can think of that has to do directly with farmers as far as a franchise. The closest thing I could come to is we have a deer repellent company, or deer repellent franchise that keeps the deer out. Maybe some farmers might need that. Probably not the real big ones, but smaller ones might. But that's close as I think I can come. We don't deal with farming equipment or farms, anything that I'm aware of at this time.
Gotcha. And what do you, not to totally sidetrack, but like, what do you attest your like upbringing in terms of like working at Taco Bell, working in the restaurant business for a really long time, to the skills that you developed there to what you bring today? Do you attest a lot to your past experience, or did you learn a lot of it as you kind of got into the business?
Working with people, Drew, when I was a restaurant manager was crucial because I dealt with people day in and day out. Had 50 employees, assistant managers, kitchen managers, so always working with people together on that. So that part was good. And then my years as an engineer, problem solving abilities on that one. So combining those two with getting to know people and then helping them solve their problems was good. The sales part of it, I did read a lot of books on sales. Some of them I didn't like because you were really just trying to get people to buy something that they may or may not need. Zig Ziglar, I think, was a good book to read. I read a couple of his because he was more sales is something you do with somebody rather than to somebody. So I really resonated with that one. It's really helping them figuring out what their problem is and then coming up with a solution for them.
Yeah. That's that engineering mindset right there. And I guess, like, and I love to kind of jump into your past a little bit. What is it like being a restaurant manager? How stressful is that experience?
That was as a younger person, it was a lot of fun because you got to work with a lot of people, had a lot of fun times, people coming and going all the time. But you put in about 10 hours a day, and I worked for Lions Restaurant up in Northern California, which was a 24-hour place.
Oh,
yeah, 7 days a week. So for the most part, it wasn't too terribly stressful, except for Thanksgiving and Christmas. That's when it was kind of a challenge to get people to show up for work, or if it got busy, to keep people overtime, or if something broke, to get something fixed. So there was as a restaurant manager, there's quite a few challenges. If you're going to go into the restaurant business, as a franchisee, and you're going to run it yourself, always, and this probably goes for any kind of retail shop there, you got people that always have backup. So I had 3 assistant managers, but in addition to my 3 assistant managers, then I usually have 2 or 3 what I call relief managers, where I trained other people to be managers as well. So that reduces quite a bit of the strain. If anybody gets sick, you're covered and all that. So always have backups for everybody. Have a backup for the kitchen manager. Have a backup. You had a couple assistant kitchen managers. Have backup for those as well, and have different people in charge of different areas. So it was busy. We were busy quite often. You had the breakfast rush. You had the lunch rush. You had the wrinkle rush. You had the dinner rush, and then you had the bar
what's the
rush.
wrinkle rush?
That's when people like me, us older folks, we like to eat a little bit early. So people don't realize we called it the wrinkle rush because we got
That's
little
awesome.
few wrinkles here. About 3 o'clock in the afternoon, my people,
That's
old people
awesome.
like me, would come in. We call that the wrinkle rush. So people don't
Oh,
always know that, but yeah. So 3 to 5, you got my folks come in, and then at 5 o'clock, then the regular crowd, the dinner rush crowd will come in. So kept us busy all the time. Wasn't too terribly stressful, just a lot of hours.
gotcha. Yeah, I came up with the kind of the stress part is I feel like restaurants can change just so quickly. And if something happens, like you open the restaurant and people aren't the biggest fan of the food or anything like that, because just customers, or how do you bring people to your restaurant when there's a ton of Italian restaurants, there's a ton of Mexican restaurants, a ton of all this stuff. And so that's where I think kind of the stress can build because you're very much reliant on the customer. I guess that's for a lot of different fields. And so That's where it kind of came up.
It is. Restaurants, I think, would be a little more challenging than most because, like you said, there are many different restaurants to choose from. So it's all about getting you could probably go with less than ideal food if you had more than ideal customer service and you had a really friendly staff. A lot of our customers that came in on a regular basis really came in for the staff. On there, it was good food, good, decent food, but it wasn't like, it just, like a, prime type restaurant, where you pay, hundreds of dollars or whatever for a meal. They were more to get a good, decent meal, but really have somebody to talk to and really have friendly people to interact with.
Yeah.
Kind of like Cheers. You walk into remember the Cheers show, you walk into the bar, things like that. And that's the kind of things that we developed over there. And the restaurant is when people come in on a regular basis, we got to know their names. Hey, I go over there and talk with people. They enjoyed having the manager walking around the different tables, talking with them. It's really about the experience, I think, with a restaurant. Maybe even a little bit more than the actual food itself, as long as it wasn't bad food. You still had to have good food, but you had to have a really great experience.
And why did you move out of these roles, being a restaurant manager, being an engineer? Was it like, did you find that it was not necessarily your calling as you kind of worked through it, so then you wanted to switch, or did you just want to switch things up because you're like, I kind of done this, I've kind of mastered it in a sense. Let's try something else out.
Got bored.
Fair
Started
enough.
doing the same thing. Yep. It's just like, this isn't doing it for me anymore. It's been fun. Let's try something else. So, 15 years in restaurant management, I got bored and said, I'm going to go to college. I've never been to college before. So at 30 years old, I went to college, got a degree in electrical engineering and physics, and went to work for Motorola Semiconductor, got an MBA in business at the same time. And then after 15 years of that, I'd say a little bit bored, but not quite as fulfilling. You get kind of tired of the hours that you put in and helping other people build their dreams. So that was like 7 to 5. And it was a manufacturing facility, so that was also open 24 hours. Kind of crazy. So there might be other hours you put in, but after that, it's like, there's got to be something better out there. And I read Robert Kiyosaki's book, Rich Dad Poor Dad. Like,
oh,
hey,
yeah, that's a good book there.
Yeah, there is something better out there. Look at that. How about that? So he ruined my corporate career for me in a good way. And I decided at that point in time, after 30 years in the corporate world, that like, man, this isn't doing it. There's got to be something better. So got out of that and went to the franchise. And sure enough, there is. And that's what I show other people, that there is an option out there. There is another way to do things. Get a franchise.
Yeah. And why, what did you want to be like growing up as a kid? And did you always ever think that franchising was a thing?
No, I wanted to be a forest ranger, a park ranger.
What changed about that?
They don't pay enough.
Fair enough.
The money just wasn't there. So at a certain point in time in your life, you're like, all right, if I'm going to get, the house and all that good stuff, I got to pick something that pays a little bit better. So that was in the restaurant management thing. Again, I was young, and the restaurant management thing was a lot of fun and going into that. But yeah, I always liked the outdoors. I always liked being out in the outdoors. And it's actually got me to where I want to be. I'm not a park ranger, but, I'm sitting out here on a whole bunch of acres out in the middle of the forest. So it took a little while, but it eventually got me to where I want to be, which is out in the forest.
That's awesome. And I got to leave you with one question here is, for people that are just starting out, and this could just be into franchise consulting, it could be into a restaurant world, it could be into the engineering world. How did you, because you had such different careers at different points in your life, how did you manage to start something new and build yourself up and get to where you are today? Because I feel like it's hard to stop something that you started for a long time and then do another thing. Sorry to cut you off.
No, quite all right. Keep going on that. The just learning about it. With the engineering field, there wasn't that much of a challenge there because, my older sister was a chemical engineer at the time. Dad was an industrial engineer. Grandpa was a mechanical engineer. So, and I was always good with math and physics, that sort of thing. That was pretty easy for me in school. So the restaurant management in the restaurant thing was just pretty easy because, we got a job there and I moved up and it's like, great money, cool. You get to meet lots of people, have a lot of fun. And then the engineering thing was like, I want to make some more money. Doctor, lawyer, engineer. Don't like blood. That's not going to work. Lawyer, that's way too much paperwork. I am not good in English. Can't do that.
Me either.
Yeah, there you go. Like engineer it is, and I'm good at math. Engineer does math. Let's do that. Let's go see what happens. So, went to school and studied that. I still stayed at the restaurant. I just demoted myself down to waiter and still stayed working at the restaurant at the time. But I was good at math, so let's do that. It was a lot of fun for 15 years.
That's awesome. And Greg, I really do appreciate you being on the show today. I think it was great to hear your story and your perspective on everything, and especially how it all works. The franchise world just seems so convoluted and crazy. And the fact that you kind of made your way through different career paths of restaurant engineer, franchise consultant now, I think is awesome. And congrats to you for having that 1 out of 4 ratio for investors. I think that's great.
Thank you, Drew. I appreciate you having me on the show. It's been an honor.
Of course. Hey, everyone. Want to take a quick second and say thank you to whoever listened to the episode today. I really do appreciate it, and it means a lot. If you did like the episode, make sure to give it a like or 5-star rating depending on what platform you are listening to. And if you really want to support the show, check out our website or Patreon link below. Thank you, and I'll catch you in the next episode.